I'm Samantha Mitchell, 32, and for 5 years I've faithfully paid $1,200 monthly rent to live in my parents' basement. Last month at dinner, they casually announced my brother Travis, his wife Katie, and their 2 kids were moving in rent-free. My heart sank as they explained how family helps family. The same family who's collected over $70,000 from me suddenly had unlimited generosity for my perpetually broke brother. The look of entitlement on Travis's face told me everything I needed to know. Before I tell you how this family nightmare unfolded, drop a comment where you're watching from and subscribe if you've ever dealt with family favoritism. 5 years ago, my life completely fell apart. I was working as a marketing specialist at a startup that suddenly went under. Within the same month, my husband Brian served me divorce papers. He claimed we'd grown apart. But the truth emerged when I discovered he'd been having an affair with a coworker for nearly a year. Just like that, I lost my job, my marriage, and the apartment we'd shared in downtown Seattle. With no income and my savings rapidly depleting to cover legal fees from the divorce, I reluctantly called my parents. My father Henry, a retired high school principal, and my mother Martha, who still worked part-time as a nurse, owned a spacious suburban home with a finished basement. They agreed I could move in, but made it clear this wasn't charity, I would pay rent. "We're happy to help you get back on your feet, Sam," Dad said as we signed a formal rental agreement he'd printed from the internet. "But $1,200 a month seems fair for the basement space, plus utilities." The basement was comfortable enough. A bedroom, small living area and bathroom, but still $1,200 was steep considering local apartments were going for around $1,400 for much more space. However, I was desperate and grateful for the immediate solution. "And of course," Mom added, "we'll expect you to contribute around the house too." That contribution quickly became defined as grocery shopping for the entire household every other week, mowing the lawn in summer, shoveling snow in winter, and cooking family dinners twice weekly. I didn't mind helping out, but on top of the rent it sometimes felt excessive. My relationship with my parents had always been relatively positive, though looking back, I can see the subtle favoritism they showed toward Travis. While I was the responsible one who earned scholarships, built a career, and lived independently until my setback, Travis was always the golden child despite his perpetual state of chaos. Travis, my 36-year-old brother, had a history of failed ventures and financial irresponsibility that stretched back to his college days. He dropped out of 3 different universities, each time with a new million-dollar idea that required immediate pursuit. There was the custom t-shirt business that lasted 6 months, the social media app for pet owners that never launched despite our parents' $15,000 investment, and most recently, a food truck venture selling gourmet grilled cheese sandwiches that collapsed after just 4 months due to mismanagement and health code violations. Despite this track record, my parents always spoke about Travis with a curious blend of exasperation and pride. "Your brother's a dreamer, Sam," Mom would say. "He just needs to find his path." Meanwhile, my achievements were acknowledged with casual nods and comments like, "Well, that's what we expected from you." Travis had married Katie 8 years ago, and she perfectly complemented his approach to life. She hadn't held a steady job since they had children, claiming she was focusing on her family, though their kids attended school and daycare. Katie had an entitled attitude that grated on me from day one. During family gatherings, she'd complain about everything from the weather to the price of organic produce, yet somehow found money for designer purses and weekly salon appointments. Their children reflected the chaotic parenting style of their household. Mason, their 7-year-old son, was hyperactive and often destructive, his behavior dismissed as boys will be boys. 4-year-old Lily had mastered the art of the public tantrum, which Katie and Travis typically address by handing her an iPad rather than setting boundaries. During my first few years living with my parents, Travis and his family lived across town in a rental house. I would see them at Sunday dinners and holidays, where I'd listen to Travis's latest business ideas and Katie's complaints while trying to protect my belongings from their children's sticky fingers. Meanwhile, I had rebuilt my career. I assumed it might be about their upcoming anniversary trip or perhaps Dad's recent doctor's appointments for his high blood pressure. Travis and Katie arrived 15 minutes late, as usual, with Mason running circles around the table, and Lily whining about hating lasagna before even sitting down. I took a deep breath and poured myself a generous glass of wine. "Everyone, we have some news to share," Dad announced once we were all seated and I'd served the food. He glanced at Mom, who nodded encouragingly. Travis and Katie have hit a rough patch since the food truck situation, and they've had to give notice on their rental. My fork paused halfway to my mouth as a sense of foreboding washed over me. Dad explained, "And the kids can take the guest room. We'll need to rearrange some things, but we'll make it work. They're really struggling right now," Mom added, reaching over to pat Katie's hand sympathetically. I nodded slowly, calculating the impact this would have on common spaces and privacy. Then a thought occurred to me. So what's the rental arrangement going to be? Will we split the $1,200? An uncomfortable silence fell over the table. Travis cleared his throat and suddenly became very interested in his lasagna. Katie looked at my parents expectantly. "Well," Dad said, adjusting his glasses in the way he always did when uncomfortable, "given their circumstances, we're not asking them for rent right now. Travis needs to focus on finding a new job, and they have the kids to support." The inequity of the situation hit me like a physical blow. So I'm paying $1,200 a month, but they're living here for free. "It's just temporary," Mom said quickly. "Just until they get back on their feet." "And how long will that be?" asked, trying to keep my voice level despite the anger building inside me. Travis finally spoke up. "Don't worry about it, sis. I'm already talking to some investors about a new concept, artisanal ice cream with CBD infusions. It's going to be huge." I resisted the urge to roll my eyes and turned back to my parents. "I don't understand. I also came here during a crisis, and I've been paying substantial rent for 5 years. "That's different," Dad said dismissively. "You're established in your career now." I bit my tongue to avoid pointing out that they'd lost their entire business due to Travis's mismanagement in their home because they hadn't paid rent for 3 months. There's more to life than marketing reports, you know? I excused myself early, claiming a headache, which wasn't entirely untrue. Back in my basement apartment, I sat on the edge of my bed, trying to process the breathtaking unfairness of what had just happened. I'd been paying nearly $15,000 a year to live in a basement. I stared at the ceiling until well past midnight, trying to be understanding about my family's decision. After all, there were children involved. But the knot of resentment in my stomach wouldn't ease, and I had a sinking feeling that my already complex living situation was about to become unbearable. Travis and his family moved in exactly 1 week later, on a Saturday that I'll forever remember as the day peace died in our home. I had offered to help, thinking it might ease the transition, but quickly regretted my decision when I realized helping meant doing most of the heavy lifting while Travis directed from the sidelines, complaining about his back problems. By Sunday evening, the transformation of our home was complete, and not in a good way. Toys were scattered across every surface of the living room. The kitchen counters were cluttered with baby bottles, sippy cups, and the specialized organic snacks Katie insisted the children needed. The guest bathroom now featured a Mickey Mouse shower curtain and step stools that I tripped over in the middle of the night. The noise was what hit me hardest. Having lived alone with my generally quiet parents for 5 years, I wasn't prepared for the constant cacophony that accompanied Travis's family. Mason's preferred volume was shouting, whether he was playing, talking, or arguing with his sister. Lily seemed to communicate exclusively in high-pitched squeals and sobs. I had an important Zoom meeting with a new client. I'd mentioned this to everyone the night before, asking for a couple of hours of reduced noise. I even put a note on my door. Important work call 9 to 11 a.m. Please keep noise down. Thanks. At 9:15, just as I was walking the client through our proposed marketing strategy, a series of piercing screams erupted from upstairs, followed by the thundering of little feet and Travis yelling, "Mason, give your sister back her doll right now." I muted my microphone, mortified, and texted my mom. In a work meeting, "Can you please help with the noise?" No response came and the commotion continued. I later learned my parents had gone grocery shopping, leaving Travis and Katie in charge, or rather not in charge, as the case appeared to be. After somehow salvaging the meeting, I went upstairs to find Travis sprawled on the couch playing video games while the kids chased each other around the dining table. Katie was nowhere to be seen. "Travis," I said, trying to keep my voice calm. I had a really important work call that got disrupted by all the noise. He barely glanced away from his game. "Sorry about that. Kids, you know." "Actually, I don't know because I don't have kids. But I do have a job that pays my rent, and I need to be able to do it effectively." That got his attention. He paused his game and looked at me with a mixture of annoyance and amusement. "Wow, someone's tense. You should try relaxing a bit, Sam. All that stress isn't good for you." "Where's Katie?" I asked, ignoring his comment. "She went to get her nails done. Said she needed some me time after the stress of moving." I stared at him dumbfounded. "And you didn't think to maybe take the kids outside or to the park while I was working?" Travis shrugged. "It's raining. Besides, they need to get comfortable in their new home. They can't tiptoe around just because you have a call." Later that evening, I tried addressing the issue with both Travis and Katie once the kids were in bed. "I understand this is an adjustment for everyone," I began diplomatically, "but I work from home 3 days a week, and I need some basic quiet during business hours." Her go-to response for dismissing any of my concerns: "They can't just turn off their energy because it's inconvenient for your work schedule. Maybe you should go to one of those co-working spaces," hoping they might mediate a reasonable solution. "Mom, Dad, I need to be able to work effectively from home. Could we maybe set up some house rules about noise levels during business hours?" My father sighed. "Sam, they just moved in. Everyone needs time to adjust." "I understand that, but my job is important. I can't have client calls interrupted by screaming and running." "They're going through a hard time," my mother reminded me, as if I hadn't heard this refrain repeatedly. "Travis is trying to find work, and Katie's handling the kids mostly alone. Katie went for a manicure yesterday while Travis played video games and the kids ran wild," I pointed out. "Everyone needs breaks," Mom said defensively. "Motherhood is the hardest job there is." I bit back my response that most jobs don't include spa days while leaving your responsibilities to others. Instead, I tried another approach. "Could we maybe designate certain hours as quiet time? Or certain areas of the house? Just be patient," Dad advised, patting my shoulder. "Things will settle down once they establish a routine." I returned to my basement apartment, feeling increasingly like a stranger in the home I was paying good money to live in. That evening, any hope that things would settle down had long since evaporated. If anything, the situation had deteriorated in ways I hadn't even anticipated. Travis remained unemployed, though he insisted he was networking and exploring opportunities. In practice, this meant long hours playing online games, occasional coffee meetings with equally directionless friends, my expensive skincare and makeup products open and smeared across the counter and floor. The limited edition eyeshadow palette I'd splurged on for my birthday was destroyed. Cream products gouged out and smashed onto the tile. I found Katie upstairs, scrolling through her phone while Travis and my parents watched a basketball game. "Did you know Lily was in my bathroom destroying my makeup?" I asked, struggling to keep my voice level. Katie barely looked up. "Oh, she said she was playing dress up. She's just being creative." "She ruined over $200 worth of products," I said, showing her a photo I'd taken of the damage. "It's just makeup," Travis interjected from the couch. "You can buy more." "That's not the point," I countered. "The point is that my private space was invaded, and my belongings were damaged." "Don't be so materialistic," Travis said, turning back to the game. "You shouldn't leave tempting things out if you don't want them touched." They were in my bathroom in my private living space behind a closed door. My mother finally intervened, but not in the way I'd hoped. "Sam, it's not worth getting this upset over some makeup. Lily didn't mean any harm." "It's not about the makeup," I insisted. "It's about respect for my space and my belongings." "You've always been so particular about your things," Dad commented, as if my desire for basic respect was a character flaw. My parking spot in the driveway was taken because it was raining and Katie didn't want the kids to get wet walking from the street. Each incident on its own might have been manageable, but the cumulative effect was suffocating. I felt increasingly like an unwelcome guest in the home where I paid rent, while Travis and his family, who contributed nothing financially, acted as if they owned the place. The toll wasn't just emotional, it was physical too. I began having trouble sleeping. Lying awake listening to the footsteps overhead or the arguments that frequently erupted between Travis and Katie late at night. I developed tension headaches that no amount of ibuprofen could touch. My work performance began to suffer as fatigue and stress took their toll, leading to a concerning conversation with my supervisor about missed deadlines. "Is everything okay, Sam?" Jessica asked during our one-on-one meeting. "This isn't like you." I considered giving a generic response but found myself fighting back tears instead. "My home situation is really challenging right now," I admitted. "I'm trying to manage it, but it's affecting my sleep and concentration." Jessica's concern seemed genuine, but I also recognized the unspoken message. My personal problems couldn't continue affecting my professional performance. That evening, I came home to find Mason and Lily watching TV at full volume in the living room while eating ice cream on the couch, a rule violation my parents had always strictly enforced when I was growing up. For $100 a month and use that to help with the extra groceries and utilities Travis's family is using. I froze in the hallway, a wave of betrayal washing over me. Not only were they considering reducing my rent, not to help me but to give more to Travis, but they hadn't even bothered to ask me first. Whose home I'd respected and paid good money to share, saw me as nothing more than a convenient source of income to support my brother's irresponsible lifestyle. That night I lay awake for hours, a gnawing sense of betrayal making sleep impossible. The foundations of what I thought was a mutually respectful, if sometimes frustrating, family arrangement had been revealed as a calculated financial strategy with me, as the unwitting contributor. Something would have to change. 6 months into this nightmarish living arrangement, I was running on fumes. My once immaculate basement apartment now functioned as my sanctuary, office, dining room and storage facility all in one. As I'd taken to keeping everything valuable locked safely away from Travis's family, I'd installed a mini fridge for my food and a deadbolt on my door, both of which had caused major arguments but which I'd refused to back down on. The tension in the house was palpable. My parents had not brought up reducing my rent, perhaps sensing my growing resentment, but they continued to make excuses for Travis and Katie's behavior while holding me to a different standard. "Sam, could you please not park in the driveway when you get home late? The garage door wakes the children," my mother would request, while saying nothing about Travis revving his motorcycle at 6 a.m. "Sam, the dishes in the sink are piling up," my father would point out, conveniently overlooking the fact that they were all from Katie's midnight snack preparations. I had been working overtime and taking on freelance projects, squirreling away money with a clear goal in mind: escape. But I wasn't quite there yet financially. Still a few $1,000s short of what I'd need for first and last month's rent, security deposit, and moving expenses for a decent apartment. Then came the Wednesday that changed everything. I had a crucial presentation to deliver remotely to our biggest client. I'd spent weeks preparing, staying up late finalizing slides and practicing my delivery. The presentation could mean a promotion if it went well, or serious career damage if it flopped. I'd made my schedule clear to everyone, putting a note on the family calendar in the kitchen and sending a group text. Critical work presentation, 2 to 4 p.m. Need complete quiet in house. My parents had acknowledged this and promised to help ensure a quiet environment. They'd even suggested taking the kids to the park, a rare moment of actual support that had given me hope. At 1:55 p.m., I set up my laptop on the desk in my room, connected to the external monitor for better visual control during the presentation, arranged my notes, and did one final check of my appearance on camera. Everything was in place. At 1:58, I heard the front door slam, followed by my mother calling up the stairs. "Katie, we're leaving for my doctor's appointment now. We should be back around 4:30. My stomach dropped. The plan had changed and no one had told me. I quickly texted Katie. "About to start my presentation. Can you please keep the kids quiet for the next 2 hours?" No response came. I took a deep breath and logged into the video conference at exactly 2 p.m. 20 minutes into my presentation, just as I was walking the clients through our proposed strategy, a piercing scream came from upstairs. followed by thumping footsteps and something heavy crashing to the floor. I winced, apologized to the clients, and continued. 2 minutes later, Lily burst into my room, tears streaming down her face. "Aunt Sam, Mason broke my doll," she wailed, oblivious to the fact that I was on camera with 6 executives watching. "Lily, I'm working," I whispered urgently. "Please go find your mom." But Lily was in full meltdown mode, and now Mason appeared in the doorway, denying the accusation at top volume. I muted my microphone and quickly escorted both children out, locking the door behind them. "So sorry about that interruption," I said, returning to my desk, my heart pounding. As I was saying about the demographic targeting. 5 minutes later, a thunderous crash against my door made me jump visibly. Katie's voice followed. "Sam, open up. The kids need to apologize." The client presentation was unraveling before my eyes. I tried to maintain composure, but when my laptop suddenly went black, I lost whatever professional facade I had left. My screen had died completely. Frantically pressing buttons yielded no response. The device was completely dead. I grabbed my phone and messaged the client contact. "Technical emergency. Please give me 5 minutes to resolve." When I unlocked my door, I found Katie standing there with both children, looking annoyed rather than apologetic. "What happened to my laptop?" I demanded. "Oh, Lily might have spilled some juice on it earlier when she was playing in here," Katie said dismissively. "Anyway, the kids have something to say to you." I pushed past them to the kitchen where my laptop charger was still plugged into the wall. The socket was wet, and an empty juice box lay on the counter beside it. "You let Lily play in my room with juice around my work equipment?" My voice was shaking with barely contained rage. "Don't overreact," Katie said, rolling her eyes. "It's just a laptop." "It's not just a laptop," I exploded. "It's my livelihood. I'm in the middle of a presentation that could determine my entire career trajectory." Travis appeared from the living room, looking irritated that his video game had been interrupted. "What's all the shouting about?" "Your daughter destroyed my laptop during the most important presentation of my year," I said, tears of frustration now streaming down my face. "It was an accident," Travis said defensively. "Kids have accidents." "This isn't about accidents," I shouted, my composure finally shattering completely. "This is about you and Katie refusing to take responsibility for anything. Your finances, your children, your lives. You've been living here rent-free for 6 months while I pay $1,200 a month to be treated like an unwelcome guest." My parents chose that moment to return home, walking in to find me in tears and Travis and Katie looking defensive. "What on earth is going on?" my father demanded. Through my tears, I explained about the presentation, the laptop, the complete disregard for boundaries. I had one important work obligation that required basic consideration, and I couldn't even get that in this house. My mother immediately went to comfort Lily, who had started crying again. There, sweetheart. Aunt Sam is just having a bad day. Are you serious right now?" I asked, incredulous. "My computer is destroyed. I've probably lost my chance at a promotion, and you're comforting Lily. Children are sensitive to conflict," my mother said primly. "Sam, calm down," my father added. "It's just a computer. You can buy a new one." "With what?" Travis chimed in with a laugh. "Her fancy marketing job money?" The dismissive comment hit a nerve. "Yes, Travis, with my job money. The same money that's been keeping a roof over your head while you play video games all day instead of finding work. This is why Brian left you," Travis shot back. "You care more about your job than family." The cruel comment hung in the air. I looked to my parents, waiting for them to defend me, to tell Travis he'd crossed a line. But their silence was deafening. My mother looked away uncomfortably, and my father suddenly became very interested in his shoes. In that moment, I understood with perfect clarity that I would never be the priority in this family. My contributions, financial and otherwise, would always be taken for granted, while Travis's transgressions would always be excused. Without another word, I walked back to my room, closed and locked the door, and sat on the edge of my bed. My hands shook as I used my phone to email an apology to the clients and my boss, explaining that a family emergency had caused technical difficulties. Then I opened my banking app and looked at my savings. Close, but not quite enough for the move I'd been planning. I'd been trying to find a nice one-bedroom in a good neighborhood, but maybe it was time to adjust my expectations. A studio apartment, a roommate situation, anything would be better than this. That night, I researched apartment options until well past midnight. I made a list of places to call the next day, determined that one way or another, I would find a way out of this toxic situation. As I finally drifted off to sleep, Travis's cruel words echoed in my mind, but instead of breaking me further, they hardened my resolve. This wasn't just about a laptop anymore. This was about self-respect. The morning after the laptop incident, I called in sick to work for the first time in 3 years. I needed space to think clearly, away from both professional and family pressures. The house was quiet, Travis and Katie apparently still asleep, my parents at their weekly bridge game, giving me rare peace to formulate a plan. I began by assessing my finances with cold precision. My savings stood at $4,800. Not enough for the comfortable transition I'd hoped for, but workable if I adjusted my expectations. A quick search of rental listings confirmed what I discovered the night before. Studio apartments in less desirable neighborhoods were within reach, especially if I was willing to commit to a longer commute. But before making any impulsive decisions, I needed professional advice. I scheduled a lunch meeting with my boss Jessica for the following day, then made another important call to a lawyer friend, Alicia, who specialized in tenant rights. Even though they're your parents, legally you're a tenant with all the protections that entails, Alicia explained over coffee that afternoon. You've been paying rent consistently with an agreement in place. That means they can't just kick you out, and they're required to provide you with habitable living conditions, which includes reasonable peace and quiet. What about my broken laptop? I asked. Can I hold them responsible for that? Potentially, yes. Though it might be complicated given the family relationship. Do you have renter's insurance? I nodded, mentally thanking my past self for that foresight. File a claim, she advised, and document everything going forward. Every incident, every conversation. Take photos of any damages. Send emails rather than having verbal conversations when possible so you have a paper trail. Armed with this information, I returned home and immediately filed an insurance claim for my laptop. Then I installed a nanny cam in my room, perfectly legal in a common law single-party consent state, to document any further invasions of my space. The next day, I met Jessica at a quiet cafe away from the office. I'm so sorry about yesterday, I began, but she waved away my apology. These things happen. The clients were understanding once I explained we were having technical difficulties. But Sam, I'm concerned about you. This isn't like you at all. I took a deep breath and gave her an honest overview of my home situation, leaving out the most personal details but making it clear that my living environment had become untenable. I'm actually hoping to transition to more remote work temporarily, I concluded. At least until I can find a new living situation. Jessica's response surprised me. We've been considering expanding our remote work options anyway. Would 3 days a week at home and 2 in the office work for you? You could use one of our huddling spaces when you come in. That would be incredibly helpful, I said, relief washing over me. And Sam, she added, there's that content creation project for Brunswick Athletic we discussed last month. It would be freelance on top of your regular duties, but it could bring in some extra money if you're interested. I left the meeting with not only a more flexible work arrangement, but also the prospect of additional income. Another piece falling into place. Over the next 2 weeks, I executed my plan methodically. First, I installed the lock on my bedroom door, triggering the expected outrage from Travis and Katie. This is ridiculous, Katie complained to my parents. What if we need to get something from her room when she's not here? Why would you need anything from my private space? I countered calmly. My mother tried to mediate. Sam, a lock seems rather extreme. We're family. I'm protecting my property after my laptop was destroyed, I replied evenly. My insurance company actually recommended it. The mention of insurance, and the implication that a formal claim had been filed, silenced further objections. Next, I began documenting all damages caused by Travis's family. When Mason scratched the coffee table I'd bought for the shared living space, I took photos and sent a group text, just noting that the coffee table was damaged today. Replacement value is $350. I created a detailed spreadsheet tracking every incident, every dollar spent, every violation of reasonable boundaries. It wasn't about collecting on these damages, it was about establishing a pattern and reclaiming my power in small ways. I reworked my budget with military precision, cutting non-essential expenses and calculating exactly how much I needed to save each week. With the additional freelance project and reduced commuting costs from my new partial remote arrangement, financial independence suddenly seemed much closer. As I withdrew from family life, spending more time either working in my room or at local cafes, the atmosphere in the house shifted. My parents seemed confused by my new detachment, while Travis and Katie grew increasingly hostile, perhaps sensing that their comfortable arrangement might be threatened. The tensions came to a head at the monthly family dinner, a tradition my mother insisted on maintaining despite the obvious fractures in our relationships. I had been skipping these dinners since the laptop incident, but this time I decided to attend, with an announcement to make. I wanted to let everyone know, I said during a lull in the conversation, that I won't be cooking Sunday dinners anymore. Between my regular job and my new freelance project, I simply don't have the time. My mother looked crestfallen. But your Sunday roast is our family tradition. Perhaps Katie could take over, I suggested pleasantly. I'd be happy to share my recipes. Katie scoffed. I'm busy taking care of 2 children all day. I don't have time to cook elaborate meals. I simply nodded and returned to my food, refusing to engage in the argument she clearly wanted. The next challenge came 2 days later when Katie knocked on my door, just as I was settling into work on the Brunswick athletic project. I need you to watch the kids for a few hours, she announced. I have a spa appointment, and Travis is meeting someone about a job opportunity. I'm sorry, but I can't, I replied. I have work deadlines. Katie's face flushed with anger. You're being selfish. I haven't had a break in weeks. I understand you need childcare, I said calmly, but I have professional obligations. Perhaps Mom and Dad can watch them when they get home from their volunteer shift. They'll be tired, she protested. It would just be for 3 hours. I'm sorry, but the answer is no, I said firmly, closing my door before she could argue further. Later that evening, my parents cornered me in the kitchen. Sam, we're concerned about your attitude lately, my father began. You seem withdrawn. Katie says you refused to help with the children today, my mother added. That's not like you. I had work to do, I explained. Just as I've had work to do all the other times I've been expected to drop everything for Travis and Katie's convenience. Being more supportive of your brother during this difficult time would be the kind thing to do, my father suggested. I've been supporting Travis financially for 6 months, I pointed out. I've been more than kind. It's not the same, my mother insisted. Family should stick together through hard times. I looked at them both, these people I'd respected and obeyed my entire life, and felt a sudden clarity. Yes, I agreed. Family should stick together. Family should support each other equally. Family shouldn't play favorites or take one member for granted, while enabling another's irresponsibility. Their uncomfortable expressions told me my words had hit home, but old patterns die hard. Within days, they were back to making excuses for Travis and holding me to a different standard. But it no longer affected me the way it once had. I had a plan, I had a timeline, and most importantly, I had reclaimed my sense of self-worth. As the weeks passed, I focused on my goal with laser precision. The freelance project was completed ahead of schedule, earning me both a bonus and the promise of future work. My savings grew steadily. I researched neighborhoods, contacted landlords, and scheduled viewings during my lunch breaks. And when I finally signed a lease on a small but sunny 1-bedroom apartment across town, I felt not just relief but triumph. I had turned a crisis into an opportunity for growth and self-assertion. Now all that remained was to inform my family of my decision. 3 months after what I now think of as Laptopgate, I signed the final paperwork for my new apartment. It wasn't the spacious, upgraded place I'd originally envisioned when I started saving. It was smaller in an older building, and the kitchen needed updating, but it was mine. All mine. No Travis leaving dishes in the sink. Giving them 2 weeks' notice. More than generous considering the circumstances. I arrived early to help my mother prepare the meal. A gesture of goodwill despite everything. You seem different lately, she observed as we chopped vegetables side by side. More. I don't know, centered. I am, I agreed, not elaborating further. Travis and Katie arrived late as usual, the children immediately running to the living room to watch TV at full volume. My father greeted them warmly while barely acknowledging my presence. A familiar dynamic that no longer had the power to hurt me. Once we were all seated at the table, I cleared my throat. I have an announcement to make, I said, keeping my voice steady. I've signed a lease on an apartment. I'll be moving out 2 weeks from today. The silence that followed was profound. My mother recovered first. But why? She asked, genuinely bewildered. Is this because of the lock on your door? We can work something out. It's not about the lock, I explained. It's about creating a healthy living situation for myself. Travis snorted. Sounds like someone can't handle living with children. This isn't about the children, I corrected him. It's about respect, boundaries, and being treated equitably. My father's brow furrowed. If this is about money, we could reduce your rent, he offered. Finally verbalizing what I'd overheard months ago. Say $900 a month instead of $1,200? It's not about the money, I said. Though the belated offer confirmed everything I'd suspected about their priorities. It's about creating a living situation where I'm valued. We value you, my mother insisted, tears forming in her eyes. You're our daughter. Family should stick together. Family should support each other equally, I countered gently. For 5 years, I've paid rent while receiving minimal consideration and respect. For 6 months, I've watched Travis and his family live here for free while my boundaries were repeatedly violated. We've been going through a hard time, Katie interjected. Everyone goes through hard times, I replied. I moved in here after losing my job and my marriage in the same month. The difference is how those hard times are handled, and whether they become a perpetual state. So you're just abandoning the family, Travis accused, anger flashing in his eyes. Classic Sam. Always putting yourself first. I took a deep breath before responding. I'm not abandoning anyone. I'm creating healthy boundaries. There's a difference. The conversation continued in circles, with my parents alternating between guilt trips and bargaining, while Travis and Katie cycled through anger, accusations, and finally panic as they realized the implications of my departure. How will we afford groceries for everyone without Sam's contribution? Katie whispered loudly to my father, apparently forgetting I could hear her. We'll figure something out. He replied uneasily. On moving day, my friends Lauren and Daniel arrived with a rented truck and unwavering support. Lauren had been hearing about the situation for months and practically cheered when I showed her the lease. I'm so proud of you, she said as we carried boxes to the truck. This is long overdue. Travis made himself scarce during the moving process, but Katie made a point of sighing loudly and complaining about the disruption whenever she passed by. My parents hovered anxiously, making last-minute attempts to change my mind. The basement will feel so empty without you, my mother lamented. I'm sure Travis and Katie would be happy to use the extra space, I replied, refusing to be emotionally manipulated. As I carried the last box out, Travis finally emerged from the garage. So that's it? You're just leaving? He demanded. Yes, Travis, I'm leaving. I confirmed. But unlike some people, I gave notice, paid my rent in full, and am leaving the space in better condition than I found it. You're abandoning the family when we need you most, he accused. I set down the box and faced my brother directly. I've supported this family financially for years. I've been patient, understanding, and accommodating beyond what anyone should expect. What I haven't done is enable ongoing irresponsibility at my own expense. There's a difference. Your sister has the right to live her own life, my father said, surprising me with this unexpected support. We've all perhaps taken advantage of her generosity for too long. Travis's face reddened. So now you're on her side? There shouldn't be sides in a family, I said quietly. That's part of the problem. The The goodbye was awkward but dignified. I hugged my parents, told the children to behave for their parents, and drove away from the house that had been both my refuge and my prison for 5 long years. My new apartment was indeed small, with outdated appliances and less than perfect water pressure. But as I sat on my second-hand couch that first night, surrounded by half-unpacked boxes in complete silence, I felt an overwhelming sense of peace. For the first time in years, the place suits me perfectly. After some small talk, she got to the real reason for her call. Your father and I have been doing some thinking since you left. We may have handled things unfairly. I appreciate you saying that, I said, surprised by this acknowledgement. Travis got a job, she continued, at a car dealership. He starts next week. I couldn't help but smile at the confirmation of what I'd suspected would happen. Without me to cushion the financial burden, reality had finally caught up with my brother. That's great news, I said sincerely. I hope it works out well for him. We've also told them they need to start contributing to household expenses, she added. Not as much as you were paying, of course, since they have the children, but something. The conversation ended with a tentative invitation to dinner the following Sunday. Just dinner, no expectations of financial or household contributions. I accepted, setting a boundary that I would stay for only 2 hours. That dinner was the beginning of a new, more balanced relationship with my family. Travis was subdued, perhaps humbled by his new employment situation. Katie was still Katie, but with less power to affect my daily life. My parents seemed to be trying in their way to atone for their favoritism. As for me, I thrived in my new independence. My work performance rebounded, leading to a promotion and raise that allowed me to start saving for a down payment on a condo. I began dating again, cautiously but optimistically. Most importantly, I learned to value myself and set boundaries. Skills that transformed not just my family relationships but every aspect of my life. Looking back, I realized that the painful experience of those 6 months was actually a gift in disguise. It forced me to confront unhealthy family dynamics I might otherwise have tolerated indefinitely. It taught me that sometimes the most loving thing you can do, for yourself and others, is to stop enabling destructive patterns. I learned that family support should be reciprocal, not a one-way street. I discovered that standing up for yourself doesn't mean abandoning others. It means requiring mutual respect. And I found that true independence isn't just financial. It's the courage to define your own worth, rather than accepting others' limited version of you. If you're watching this and recognizing similar patterns in your own family, remember that you deserve respect and consideration. Setting boundaries isn't selfish. It's necessary for healthy relationships. Supporting family is important, but not at the expense of your own well-being. And sometimes the most difficult decisions lead to the most profound growth. Have you ever had to set difficult boundaries with family members? How did it change your relationship? Share your experiences in the comments below. And if this story resonated with you, please like, subscribe, and share with someone who might need to hear it. Remember, standing up for yourself isn't just brave. It might be the most important act of self-care you ever undertake. Thank you for listening to my story, and I wish you courage and clarity on your own journey to healthy family relationships.